All right. Good afternoon, Nick. Good to see you today.
Same here, Matt. Good to be here.
And it was good connecting with you just a couple minutes before our call. We were talking about you were busy last week. Buyers are kind of increasing, yet now we're also seeing maybe some sellers starting to want to reemerge and re-enter uh, into the market. And it's kind of funny you brought that up because yesterday I was talking to one of my friends who's an agent with the Keller Williams in the Clinton office, and she was looking to list her property, and she was doing it back in March when things started to get kind of crazy. She took it off the market just because she was kind of panicked a bit. But then she's realized now, how home prices haven't really gone down. They've kind of stayed pretty flat. So she feels more confident, listing the property. And over the weekend, as I was just mentioning, we've had a lot of agents say they've seen an increase in activity. So have you experienced that increase over the weekend? Maybe the nice weather did it, or what are your
Yeah,
experiencing out there?
yeah, I do feel like because we're in New Jersey, activity starts to go up when you start to have nice weather, and I think that everything now that it's kind of settled in, and people are getting more used to the quarantine, they started to get either itchy about buying because they can, and so the people that are able to and willing to buy have been really doing their part to kind of get out there. I never even saw a decrease in demand from the buyer side, and I think that bodes well to the stats too, that kind of confirm that um, you know the buyers are still out there, and under contracts are going up or staying the same as they would normally in this time. But the active listings maybe were a little bit short of that, and so you took away from the listings with all the buyer activity. And I think that buyers might soon realize that they're not going to just get all the deals in the world,
Mhm.
and they should still move forward as it is. And I think that says something about our industry, this time around, where in 2008 and 2009, the problem started with housing, and this time it hasn't.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the last things to be affected this time around. And so we're coming from a position of strength. And I think that just the more that sellers get hit with this information, I think the more likely they'll be able to make the decision to list, because they see that, hey, the prices are still good, and they won't affect their ability to get traffic, or to get buyers to make an offer on the home. So that's what we're
Yeah.
seeing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I almost think in a way we just needed like some time to let things breathe a bit because
Exactly.
everything kind of happened in the middle of March, end of March, where it was like, you know, lockdowns, shutdowns. How are we going to, maneuver the business? I feel like we've kind of, even if we're not back to normal, which we clearly aren't, I think we've kind of settled into kind of a new normal in just how we're showing properties. We've talked over the past couple weeks on appraisal issues. I know some concerns that some agents had in our office. Some of their clients, they had buyers who had to sell their house first before buying another property, and they were concerned. Well, if my sale goes, under contract, or if I buy something and they don't happen simultaneously, or one happens and not the other, they'd be in trouble. And so I think now,
Right.
I think that perception, and I think we're kind of coming out of that fear.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. I do think it's still very important for everyone play their position and be absolutely on point with whatever they're doing. I wanted to get into this next part here. When it comes to buyers as agents, there's a couple of guidelines and some things that I want to make sure that the KW family maybe takes it into consideration. So one of the things that I think is really important is to make sure that the pre-approval for the buyer is very, very recent. So within 10 days even, because one of the things that we've noticed is that while the buyer demand has
You
not
said
really
within
changed.
10 days, you said? I'm just taking notes so I can
Yeah.
post this later. So you said within
Oh
10
yeah.
days.
Yeah, within 10 days, I think it's good. So because what we're finding is that there's still, buyers that may have been, and this is what I'm hearing from other companies or from other, just through the grapevine.
Mhm.
There's buyers that may have been approved or pre-approved months ago that, for a particular program with a particular score, with a particular situation,
Mhm.
and now either the credit score is, uh, you know, different, maybe more expensive if it's on the lower end. Maybe that product is not available anymore,
Mhm.
because that's the part of our business that, while we've seen activity, interest still arise, the pool might be a little bit smaller of qualified buyers. So we want to ensure that buyers agents don't waste time, and listing agents really review the pre-approval dates to make sure that this has been vetted from a current perspective. So one, that the job or income situation didn't change. Sometimes somebody can be qualified with overtime, but now there's no overtime.
Mhm.
You know, somebody doesn't have to not have a job anymore for them to be affected. Their
Mhm.
income could have been affected, because I see that that's happening too from time to time. People maybe aren't laid off, but they say, hey, we're going to do a 10% or 20% cut across the
Or they're
board.
not getting bonused, which, some people's salary
Correct.
is, maybe 60% of what you earn, yet the other 40% could be on bonuses that you expect year in, year out, and you're not getting those bonuses this year.
So if those qualifications are already taken into place, and maybe they were pre-approved for that, you want to redo it. You essentially want to redo it to make sure that, hey, is all of this exactly the same as it was originally? So that's part of, the important steps that we're taking on our end, to make sure that, everyone has the latest and greatest info, because it matters to our partners. We don't want anybody to waste time with properties. There is a small segment of the market that I think is going to get pushed out. The tighter deals, the lower down payment, lower credit scores, the purchase prices that are, just sub, entry level range, the 300, something like, that's a little bit on the lower side or tighter to begin with. We might have some challenges with, or at least we need to review what those numbers are, to make sure that nothing has changes. But obviously, I can also see this affect people with higher price points. I mean, certainly, like you said, if we were counting the bonus or overtime, or something happened, um, it doesn't mean that we can't restructure it, but it does probably mean that we need to look at it and make sure that we're still in the right, um, price ranges, and have all the latest and greatest data. So we've done a lot of that, and I think that's part of how we felt so busy, is that we've had some activity, right, with
Yeah.
purchase and refi, but also with just re-going through everything with everyone, and
Mhm.
asking people those specific questions about, hey, did anything change? Does all of these things, and so that we still ensure that the person has the ability to repay, and that they're looking in the right direction. But on the positive side, we have almost low all-time low rates again, and so I think that that'll stay low, for buyers below $510,000
Mhm.
loan amounts. You're looking at the low 3%, 3.1, so it's been really amazing. And I do see that, like, steadily kind of seeing, like, right there, or being right at that all-time low. So for people with that haven't been affected, that, are borrowing in those, price ranges, that they're going to be absolutely perfect, because their combination of the people that can buy, it's just it's an awesome time for them.
Absolutely. So what I took, the one note that I took from you right there, that I just want to hammer home is make sure pre-approval date for the buyer is very recent. So some point within the last 10 days, because if the pre-approval date is back in March, you're saying so much has changed, uh, from then till now, that as an agent, you don't want to potentially waste time with people who, it could be a different situation.
Yes,
Um, so that's
either
one.
that
Now,
don't
what other
qualify,
tips?
or they have, like, maybe a lower price point, or they need to figure something out with their assets or down payment, to make things work.
Got it. So that's one thing you want to bring up. I heard you say you had a couple guidelines that you wanted to, share with our agents. So that's one. Do you have something else that you wanted to share as well?
Um, yeah, so it's just, anyone with credit scores below a 680, some things have changed. Not necessarily that it's not possible. You could still do FHAs with 3.5% down, but it starts to get a little bit more expensive. So even if a client was pre-approved previously, maybe that loan now is a little bit more expensive, or maybe they need to put a little bit more money out of pocket for closing costs. So there's some things that we need to work around, or they need to have a seller concession, because the loan ends up being a little bit more expensive. So there are a couple things on that side of it. Anybody with decent credit above 680, over 700, there hasn't been a lot of changes at all for that. But it's really when it starts to get into the sub 700 categories that things either have changed a little bit or have gotten more expensive. Nothing specific, but anything below 640 is getting very difficult to do. So we did squeeze a little bit of the market out, with that. And so what we've been doing with those is working on credit repair. We have a system that, plugs in, hey, what are we targeting? Like what number credit score? And then it shows the borrower what they need to do exactly to try to get to that credit score.
So the credit repair system is something through your company, or you have an outside vendor that does that?
We have an outside vendor through our credit agency that we use, and it's a specific software program that basically says, hey, what do we need to get to? Like, are you trying to get to 680, 670, so 660? And then it'll say, hey, if this client pays this credit card off by 1,000, this one off by 500, by month's end, their score might be might be in the range that you're looking for, and it's pretty dang accurate. It's not guaranteed, but it's very accurate, and it becomes like an easy way to start to work around. And this is similar to what we saw in 2008, 2009. First, the credit scores got bumped up a little bit. There was a squeeze on that. I do see that maybe there's going to be a credit tightening on some of the investment property loans. We've seen some of that. That's another thing that if this thing drags out a long time and becomes an issue, I can see that the windows are tightening. I mean, the biggest banks, they've all but cut out home equity lines of credit, 700 and above, Chase and Wells Fargo. So you're starting to see that, they've buttoned it up. But the good thing is that because we have so many different options in terms of who we sell loans to, we still have a few that are coming into the business.
Yeah, no, so I think that's great. And I think where my head just went now, you were talking about some of the systems that you guys have and that you guys offer. I feel like over the last month or so, we've been just focusing on kind of leading through the crisis that is. And now I think, each day we're getting closer and taking steps closer to coming out of this. So
Yeah.
kind of just give us an overview of some of the systems you have, some of the programs you have, just about Geterate in general that maybe, people haven't plugged into in a while, that would be a good time to kind of reshare that information.
Yeah, I mean, so it starts with our digital, mortgage, solution, which allowed us to work remotely. We've been doing Zoom meetings with clients, and because our process is mostly online, it allows us to electronically verify a lot of the documentation, like income and assets. So it makes the process a little quicker and easier to get to that point of like, hey, does this work, or can it work now? So those are some of the things. We've noticed that the increased use of that credit analyzer software, and I guess it's also just our ingenuity, from all the years, from the previous crisis, just to find those ways that we kind of shelved for a while, to come up with solutions. And so every day I'm reaching out to the whole team with ideas like, hey, did you know that we could do this and this, and they then pass it on to the clients. I think that just for a while it got pretty easy to do loans, because it just kind of all really fit in anybody. You have to find different either investors or solutions, and that's kind of what has kept me very busy, is just to make sure that we have an outlet for most type of situations. And if we don't have it as is, we restructure it, whether it's cosigner or down payment. We talk about those other solutions, and then we have the technology to quickly adapt to add those in and get people qualified ASAP, pre-qualified ASAP.
Awesome. Now another thing that I know has come up. I don't know if it's been on our calls, but definitely that I've heard or read articles on refinancing. I feel like right now we get a lot of questions on should I refinance my mortgage? What type of advice would you offer? With mortgage rates being so low, what would your advice be, or what's your take on that?
I do think that this is a perfect time to refinance. I do for most people. I mean, if someone didn't have their income change, or even if they did have have something change, certainly refinancing to lower their debt or lower their monthly payment. I've seen that. I've seen it more where people are taking the longer term option just because they don't know what the future will bring, and so that's been kind of part of our thing. So when someone asks like, hey, what's a 15-year mortgage? Maybe that's the best loan for them, but maybe it's like, hey, I know you have 20 years left. Maybe take a 30-year loan and pay it back in 15 years if you want. It's all it's almost all the same, but you have the option at least if something were to happen or this drags out longer and there's some more economic fallout. So every person's situation is different, but I do think that almost everybody should take a look now because the rates are near all-time lows, if not all-time lows. I haven't checked to today, but when you're close to a 3% on a 30-year fix, that's like an all-time low, and we've had rates that were low for a long time, but this is certainly a time to start to look at those things, to get your personal finances in order,
Mhm.
to do what you need to do in the future. And I've also seen people take money out or refinance out of a primary that they're going to keep, and maybe they don't want to sell that, but they still want to carry it, rent it out so that they could purchase a new home. So there is a lot of that working out, and it works in our favor. Low rates is always a great tool in our belt. People can afford more, and then we can also find ways to save the money if they're trying to do multiple things at once. So I've had a few applications where it's like, hey, I'm going to refinance and take some cash out, or refinance to lower my payment, to then use to eventually to purchase a new home, and so I have a little bit more cash to put down on the new home, and and then it makes me look better on that side.
Absolutely. Well, no, thank you for that. And really, thank you for your time. Really today, the past couple Wednesdays. I know with Mary Beth not here, we covered on some good stuff today. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add or share, or that any other burning topics that you want to discuss. But I can't say enough. Thank you for just participating in these calls every week. I've heard a lot of people give good feedback to the calls Mary Beth and I are doing at 11, the mortgage calls we're doing for getting exposure. Even if people aren't plugging in exactly when we're doing them, I can tell you we have a lot of people watching them on delayed viewing. So, and that's where some of these
Oh,
questions
nice.
come from.
Yeah.
So, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your, busy schedule to be able to sit here with us.
No, it's my pleasure. I mean, I would say, the takeaways is just, make sure your mortgage partner has the most up to date pre-approval. Know that interest rates are low. Know that we'll get through this, and that the buyers are out there and still buying. And it's weird. Some people might not feel like they're active right now, and some people are very active. I think it's just like anything, you just got to keep moving. If it's one additional level harder, I mean, what are you going to do? You just, you deal with the cards that you're dealt, and keep it moving. And if I can help anyone in the office, I'm always here. I mean, your guys' success is my success, and vice versa. And we'll get through it together.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for your time. Next week, we'll do it same time. Mary Beth will be here. She just had a scheduling conflict today, but we'll definitely continue with these calls because they've been really helpful.
Good to be with you, Matt.
Thanks.
Always.
I'll see you next week.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.